And we're live again. So jumping straight into the topic. If you know what day it is, it's Wednesday. So it's time for the Wednesday word. That's Wednesday. Word. Sound. Got it. Woo, I don't know what happened. So I'm gonna have to edit that. Boom. But what tonight's topic is on the Wednesday word is emotional overload. And so, as always with the Wednesday word, I like to say what I mean by my topic. And so, emotional overload, what I mean by that topic is that if we imagine that our hand are different emotions, we have happy, sad, angry, frustration, and depression. I'm going to move anger over here to the thumb because that is an emotion that I struggle with. So if we have everything that's supposed to be being done by all these other fingers overloading the thumb, eventually we're going to have injuries in our thumb. Our thumb is going to be dealing with a couple of things that it probably shouldn't be dealing with. You know, we should be trying to write with a pen, but we're trying to grip the pen right here. All these different things take place and that cause our thumb to be overloaded with work. The same thing happens with our emotions. When we have areas that we have to that we are not utilizing, I'm sorry, of emotions because it's easier or because whatever reason it may be, we end up overloading the emotion that we use the most, that we may be inappropriately using. So that's what I mean when I use the term emotional overload. That's my take really quick. So I want to get into tonight just to kind of give you a couple of the tools. I came up with about 5 tools that help me deal with emotional overload, and hopefully at the end of the day will help you deal with emotional overload. So let's jump straight into it. The very first tool that I came up with when it comes to dealing with emotional overload was you're going to have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Many times the reasons we decide to use specific emotions is because we're good at them. I mean, who doesn't want to use what they're good at? And so it's uncomfortable to be in the areas of weakness that we may be experiencing, whether it's, you know, like if I'm good at sadness, so I'm good at the victim story. If I'm good at those things, it may be uncomfortable for me to be in that it may be comfortable for me to use those things. So everything kind of comes through that emotion of sadness. So let's say, you know, I got a job promotion. Well, you know, I don't want to get too excited about it because it has to go through sadness. It can't go through happiness. I don't want to get too excited about the promotion because, you know, it could be taken away or it could be this, it could be that, it could be a ton of different things. So you're going to have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and realize that any other area that you are not using is not getting stronger. So the best way to develop it is to get uncomfortable and start engaging with those emotions that we may not be as we're going to say articulate or well versed in. Get familiar with them and begin to use them in their proper tense or in their proper emotion state. I don't know what the word is right now. But begin to use them. And so the next thing that I came up with was that, and I have to keep looking away, but for some reason Evernote is down today, so I have to use my phone, which is a lot smaller than my monitor, to look at my notes. But the next tool that I decided to use or felt like was very helpful in dealing with emotional overload was taking time to identify useful emotions. And so going back to me as a young man, anger was a very useful emotion to me, but it was only useful to me because I was weaponizing it and I was using it to, like, you know, kind of keep the bullies away and hopefully attract some girls because, ooh, Billy, he's so strong. He's our man. If he can't do it, no one can, whatever it may be. So take time to identify the useful emotion. So, like, also what I mean by that is that you may decide to use the wrong emotion. You may use happiness. Let's say you're using happiness and it's not the real useful emotion. Sometimes you see these confusions of emotions or mixing of emotions when people deal with really stressful or difficult situations. So let's say, you know, I'm dealing with somebody who's passed away that I really cared about, and I'm trying to send, all these things have to go through happiness because I got to keep happy. I got to stay happy. I can't get depressed. I can't be sad. And so I overwhelm happiness trying to do the job that sadness or grief would be doing in this particular case of emotion. And really, it's interesting when this happens because when you start to overload an emotion, you typically get adverse reaction. So let's say anxiety. Typically, anxiety comes because a person is anxious. And really, there are some things that are okay to be anxious about. You know, if you're waiting to find out about a job promotion, or if you're waiting to go on your cruise and it's like tomorrow, next week I'm on vacation, I'm kind of anxious about that and excited at the same time that I'm going to have a week off from work and not have to do really any traveling or anything specific. Like I just kind of have time, and that's nice for me. But when you allow that everything to start processing through that anxiety or that anxiousness, what happens is that emotion of anxiousness becomes anxiety. And now all of a sudden you have anxiety issues and you're like, what's this panic attack I'm experiencing? What's these things that I didn't plan to be experiencing from using this emotion? So find out what the useful emotion is. It may be a mix of a couple of emotions, not just one emotion. You might have a sense of anxiety, but a sense of, you know, trying to keep some peace, try to send some of that stuff through a peace filter so that it's not overwhelming you. The third tool that I came up with is that it's important to purge our emotional backlog. And so what do I mean by purging our emotional backlog? Again, we are very good at manipulating and using the strength of the emotions that we're comfortable with. And even when those emotions are used in the proper channels, or when the proper things are being filtered through the proper emotion, there can be some buildup. There can be some things that backlog. But what speeds up the backlog is when you're using the wrong emotion and sending things through that filter of the wrong emotion. And so having the ability to say, you know what, taking a step back, getting into some reflection and looking at how you're using your emotions and looking at how happiness is working in your life and saying, what do I need to kind of purge out of there that I allowed to build up? Is it something that, you know, I've gotten so accustomed to this euphoric feeling, this feeling of lightness and greatness that I just have to be happy all the time? Well, that can be overindulgence. And then when you feel that happiness slipping, now you may find yourself chemically trying to keep that emotion strong and subsidize that emotion's ability. Could it be something where, you know, like going back to sadness, depression is something that I've had to deal with in my life. And so could it be that I've allowed so much sadness to go through this filter that the filter's clogged? I don't know if you guys have cars, but they have these things called air filters. And it's funny, they say, oh, well, you know, cars, then their air filter needs to be this for the engine and all these different things. But at some point, if you don't clean that filter, you're going to have a backlog of soot and dirt, and really it's air, but it's the particles that are in the air that are actually building up on the filter. So it's important to take time to reflect, get into yourself, and find out how to clear out that backlog. So that way, when you do have something big that needs to go through the emotion, it's a pretty clear filter for it to go through, and you're able to process it and handle it responsibly. The fourth thing that I came up with is a two-part thing. It's reflect on your emotional deficiencies. I think for myself, a lot of times in life, when it comes to deficiencies, it's sometimes easier for me to just want to, Black Heights. It's sometimes easier to allow things to kind of get swept under the rug, out of sight, out of mind. Oh, I'll deal with that later. And what happens is it creates a backlog, kind of going back to the backlog, but it creates a backlog. And so when you're looking at the areas of deficiency, when it comes to emotions, it's about getting those emotions in the gym, putting them through a routine, putting them through something that is going to cause them to grow and to develop the bandwidth to where they can be readily utilized just as easily as the emotions that you have that are strengths. One of the things I'm always big about is I'm like, you know, I'm not an overly emotional person. I'm not really huggy, lovey, kissy, kissy. However, there are some emotions that probably are deficient in my own life that keep me from building those areas to where I can have a better flow of nurture and love and care and compassion when I'm in a relationship. So those are the things when it comes to reflecting on your emotional deficiencies that are really important. There's two areas that I actually want to focus on is reflect on why the incorrect emotion was used when it comes to emotional deficiencies. So like if I use, going back to myself as an example, if I use anger to try to diffuse a situation, why am I using anger when if I logically think, anger typically escalates a situation. It doesn't typically diffuse a situation. So why am I leaning on anger, which is my strength? Or if I try to use, let's say I avoid using diplomacy. Excuse me, diplomacy. Why am I avoiding diplomacy? Is it because I feel like my ability to negotiate is weak, or my ability to stay calm and stay controlled and stay concise about my intentions is weak? Why am I falling back from there? The second area is identify the proper emotion that identify the proper emotion that could have been used. And why? And again, once you identify that proper emotion that could have been used, why that response was not used. So it's a balance of reflecting on the incorrect emotion that was used and the emotion that could have been used that would have been more healthier to use. So that's the fourth tool, reflecting on your emotional deficiencies. And then number 5, which I kind of consider it's a bonus tool, but understand that emotions are complex and not linear. There is no such thing as a one size fits all emotion. This is what typically leads to emotional overload. We get really good at like 3 basic emotions, and then we try to broadly paint life with those 3 basic emotions. It would be like being an artist and only having access to 3 primary colors and trying to paint the world's finest, beautiful fall scene piece of art. It's not going to happen with 3 colors alone. And life is very much like that, like art. We are not going to be able to paint our entire lives with the 3 emotions that we are the strongest in. So push yourself to get into a place where you understand the complexity of your emotions. Realize sometimes these emotions work in tandem. Sometimes they work in trios. Sometimes they work in quartets. But realize that how they work is very complex and intricate. And if you find yourself leaning towards one emotion in almost every situation, you're probably setting yourself up for a position, or to be in a position of emotional overload. So that's really what the Wednesday word is about. Again, I want to really quickly go over the 5 bullet points that I shared. The first one being, you're going to have to get uncomfortable with discomfort. The second one, take time to identify the useful emotion. The third one is purge your emotional backlog. The fourth one is reflect on your emotional deficiencies. And the fifth bonus one is understand that emotions are complex and not linear. They're not linear solutions. So good luck with that one. As always with the Wednesday word, I like to share a personal story of what kind of got this concept going for me, what kind of helped me start thinking about the tools that I've used to try to engage and interact better with my own emotions and hopefully subside the amount of emotional overload that I had. And really what resonated with me is something that I shared in the beginning is anger. Anger for me was a very big emotional, we're going to call it crutch. It felt like from a very young age, it was something that I could take. I could use it as a baseball bat. I could use it as motivation. I could use it to deal with being rejected, with a girl breaking up with me. I could use it for a lot of different things. However, what that did is it caused what I call temper tantrums, what a lot of people call temper tantrums. And those temper tantrums, I got really good at them. Like, oh, well, this didn't go my way. Boom. Insert temper tantrum. Oh, I feel hurt. I'm sad that something happened and I don't want nobody bothering me. Boom. Insert temper tantrum. And so I remember I think I was in like 4th or 5th, maybe 3rd. I don't remember what grade. I was in elementary school, but I remember being in elementary school and I remember going to the principal's office, and I don't know why I remember this so vividly. But I remember I had gotten in trouble in class, got sent to the principal's office, and they had called my mom. And my mom was coming up to the school, and this is back in the day when you was gonna get, I call them touch-ups, but you was gonna get your butt whooped if your mom came to the school. And so I already knew what was getting ready to happen. And so in order to attempt to divert that consequence of me acting up and my mom having to be called to the school, I decided I was going to go above and beyond on my temper tantrum. And so this is back in the day when we were wearing corduroys, and I was tearing up my pants and just, they couldn't control me. I remember at one point I was in this dark room, and really when I look back at that experience now as an adult, it wasn't because I was angry. It wasn't because I was enraged. It was because I had compiled so much emotional pressure on anger that when it came time to handle fear of my mom coming to the school to whoop my butt, when it came time to handle the emotion of accountability and regret, all I did was dump that back on top of anger. And anger was like, today, I ain't having it. And so I go into this temper tantrum rage, tearing my clothes up, screaming, kicking, just, it was a very ugly situation. That's probably why I remember it so vividly. But then my mom came to school and I still got the whooping. So then now I'm angry because now my feelings are hurt. You hit me. How could you be so mean? And you da 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 da. All going through anger. And it's funny because I mean, it's funny now because I'm not a kid, but it's funny because this is something that I've seen at such a young age in myself of emotional overload. And here we are now, shoot, I'm 37 years old now, so 30 plus years away from the incident. And I'm still working on emotional overload for myself. So it's not an area that I have perfected or mastered or will have probably mastered at any time soon, but that is what emotional overload is. It is okay, son. Well, come here and say hi to people. My son decided to come and say hello to me. Say hi to everybody. Hi. Okay, go back and close the door, please. Go and close the door, son. Now, this is why it's different doing YouTube in Utah versus doing YouTube in California. But you know, I guess he wanted to say hi to me, so I'm okay with that. Anyway, when it comes to emotional overload, what I am still learning about myself is that we daily put life through these filters, whether it's the 5 fingers that I showed you representing our feelings and emotions. We daily put ourselves through those things. And it's okay that we daily put life through those filters, but it is so critical and so important that we are making the correct combinations and that we are sending those experiences through the right filters to avoid emotional overload. So that way you're not lashing out at people unnecessarily. You're not jumping into temper tantrums. You're not trying to buy your way with material things out of situations, but you're able to healthfully put that life through the proper filters. So other than that, that's all I got for you today. I hope you guys have enjoyed the show with my special uninvited guest, Ethan Rowe, making it happen, making an appearance. That's a blessing that he's here. I'm grateful for him to be here. Didn't expect to be on, but I hope you guys got a chance or an opportunity to see my son and you're happy about it. So other than that, as always, the next live event that will be taking place on the first row is the Wednesday Word next week. We're not going to have an intersession on Tuesday because that's the Christmas holiday for some people who celebrate. So the next live event will be the Wednesday Word on Wednesday, December 26th at 6:30 p.m. That will be on the topic, lose some weight. Whoo! Hey, I got some weight to lose, but you're going to find out what I mean by that topic. And it's not a New Year's resolution, so don't try to apply it. The second thing is again, I want to continue to put this out there that we are going to have the first row intersession panel on next Thursday, the 27th at 7 p.m. And that topic will be on dating. That will be a panel with Trenton Fitzhugh, Jennifer Grant, Carolyn Singletary, and I want to call him Cousin Mo, but Moses Jenkins. So definitely tune into that. That's going to be fun. If you didn't watch last night's intersessions, there was more than one. Go and catch a replay on that. But until the next time that I get to see you, thank you guys for sitting on the first row. I look forward to seeing you next time. Until the next time, though, one love, peace, and God bless.